Hello, my name is Ariana Masterjohn, and this is my organizational psychology presentation on The Devil Wears Prada. So, in this presentation, I'll discuss 10 different IO psych themes throughout the film. And first up is training. Training is defined as the systematic acquisition of skills, concepts, or attitudes that result in improved performance in another environment. Simply, training is just learning a new set of skills that can help you in a field or in an environment. In the film, it is less about this formal instruction and more about survival. So Andy is kind of just thrown off the deep end and expected to learn and understand how runway works and how this company works, and she's not really given any formal instruction at all. She's really just told that she should dress differently and figure it out and always be there for Miranda. Our second topic is work-life balance. So that's simply just the balance between the work aspect of someone's life and the non-work aspect. So everything you do outside of work. And there should be a balance between how much time you spend at work and how much time you spend not at work, and the satisfaction one experiences in both of those fields. So throughout the film, she loses all sense of work-life balance. She's at the constant demands of Miranda, answering phone calls at all hours of the day and expected to be there 5 minutes before. It takes a strain on her relationships and her friendships, and she's spending less and less time with her friends and family and the people she cares about. And she's kind of just consumed by this opportunity that this position could help advance her career in the future. A third concept is job satisfaction. So that kind of plays off of this work-life balance, but job satisfaction is more of like the positive attitude or emotional state resulting from someone's job. So how happy someone feels at their job. For Andy, she does not really have much job satisfaction. She really wants to be a journalist, but she's really just working as this receptionist in a very, very toxic environment. And there's a lot of lack of appreciation. And one of the big things that goes into job satisfaction is feeling like your work is appreciated and seen and, interested by others. And she also has no real interest in the specific field. She doesn't really have an interest in fashion or anything that kind of goes into that. So I'd say that she has very low job satisfaction. Other characters in the film, like Nigel, however, kind of have a high sense of job satisfaction. They love the workplace, they love what they're doing, and they're seeing the outcomes of the work. And yes, it's a toxic environment, and yes, that they see that. But, they really love the work they do and see that they're part of something bigger. Despite the lack of appreciation, I feel like Nigel does have a high sense of job satisfaction because he kind of just loves what he does. So our fourth topic is stressors. Stressors are anything physical or psychological demands which a person has to respond to. So these are workload, perceived control, time pressure, interpersonal conflict, all these different factors that affect someone in the workplace. In the film, there's no shortage of stressors, and I don't know how much I can stress that. The workplace is complete chaos all the time. Everyone's overworked all hours of the day. Andy is learning this new job without any proper training and just thrown into this environment. And it's an environment where everyone is ridiculed. So like Miranda puts everyone down. There's a negative sense of self, and kind of a topic that spreads across this film is the stressors of being part of the beauty and the fashion industry, like body image and expecting to be like a size 2 and full face of makeup and heels to work every day. And it's an environment that is highly stressful and highly competitive, and there's a lot of stress in it. Going off of that, taking it a step further, is burnout. So burnout is this when you have your stress and it becomes extreme strain, resulting from chronic, prolonged stress, and it exceeds an individual's ability to cope with them. So for Emily, we see this culture of workaholics. And as I was discussing before, the beauty standards in the industry can 100% lead to burnout. The diets, coming into work sick, and putting the body through extremes can lead to this state of burnout. It also, along with it, comes extreme emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and this low sense of personal accomplishment. And I feel like we see this a lot in the film, that everyone is like right on that cusp of burnout, putting their bodies to the extremes and just under so much stress from everything. Now, our next one is justice. So, there's a few different types of justice, but I'm going to discuss two here. So, first is distributive justice, where the rewards given to workers seem fair, the outcomes or results of decisions seem fair, simply. In the film, there's the major example of this is Nigel, who worked for Miranda for many, many years, and he's really had no career advancements. He was supposed to become, have an increased role at the company and kind of become this head, I forget the exact title, but this head of basically his department. And it was at this big conference, and it really looked like she was going to give it to him, and then she gave it to her sworn enemy. And it kind of just goes to show this unjust distribution of awards, and it really should have gone to Nigel, who's committed so much time, energy, and effort into this company in so many years of his life. Yeah. And going off of that is procedural justice. So it's how the rewards are distributed seems fair. So basically the process by which decisions are made is fair. In the film, Miranda does not employ fair decision making. Employees have no voice in their opinions in the things that happen to them. It's really all just kind of this dictatorship rule of Miranda. And she has this strong narcissistic bias where all of her decisions are going towards her own personal benefit and not really thinking about the well-being and benefit of her employees. Now is commitment. So commitment is the emotional attachment an individual has to relationships, organization, goals, or occupation. There are three main types of commitment that I'll discuss, and these are all showcased throughout the film. So first is affective commitment, which is the emotional attachment someone feels to their organization. Andy, as I discussed, really does not have an emotional attachment to Runway. She is kind of just there for paying the rent and hoping to get a career advancement. Nigel, on the other hand, has lots of emotional attachment. You know, he's read Runway since he was a kid, and he loves the fashion industry, and he is really, proud to be part of this. The second one is normative commitment, which is the obligation to remain at an organization. Now, Andy does not really have an obligation to remain. It's more so she's remaining because it looks better if she does, and in hopes that she can boost her career off of this opportunity. Nigel, however, does have lots of obligation to remain. He's been at this organization for, I believe it was 18 years. And he loves what he does and is very intertwined into the everyday workings of Runway and has lots of obligation to remain. And last but not least is continuous commitment, which is the perceived cost of leaving. Now, both Andy and Nigel and pretty much every character in the movie has a high perceived cost of leaving. Whether that is paying the rent and figuring out how they're going to do that without a job, or what Miranda will do or say about them if they do leave and how they would get hired somewhere else if they had a negative review from her. And, they're just so intertwined into this major corporation that could really make or break their lives. And that gives everyone kind of this high perceived cost of leaving. Next is leadership. So kind of playing off of justice and how rewards are distributed and commitment to organization and all those topics, we now have leadership. So a leader is an individual in a group given a task of directing relevant group activities. In the film and in the text, The Devil Wears Prada is the prime example of abusive supervision. So it's defined as a non-physical form of hostility or aggression carried out by managers against employees. So actually in the text, Miranda was the textbook definition of abusive supervision. She is an aggressive and psychologically abusive boss who publicly ridicules and undermines her employees. It's constantly, especially with Andy, this can be seen at the beginning, where she's, the way she dresses and the way she acts and the way she presents herself is really, Miranda really, almost takes offense to that, and that she doesn't really get fashion, and, that both the belts look the exact same color, and there's so many different examples, but just the standards that Miranda holds her employees to that are absolutely unreasonable and ridiculous. She expected Andy to get her a plane back and when all flights were grounded and no one was flying out, and was threatened to fire her if she couldn't get her a flight. And it's really, she rules by this referent power and the rewards and punishments that could make or break someone's career. All right, and now we have teams, almost there. So teams are the interdependent collection of individuals who work together towards a common goal and for the shared responsibility of specific outcomes for their organization. In the film, I think an example that's not really talked about as much is all the background characters of this production team. They are busy bees who are keeping this organization afloat, organized, and everything kind of running smoothly. You kind of have all of these little specific project teams who are working on maybe a specific page in the magazine or a specific new collection that's about to drop, and everything that goes into that, from hiring designers to approving designs to actually making and planning out. And there's so many different factors and so many people working together to produce a magazine in general, and I think a lot of that is kind of highlighted throughout the film as well, and just how well these teams can work together. However, a key part is productive feedback from a supervisor, and Miranda does not really give productive feedback. There's a scene where designers are showcasing their designs to her, and she does not say a word and just gives either a head nod or kind of just like a little smirk of approval, right? Yeah. Now our last slide is on Maslow's need theory. So there are 5 levels of needs that Maslow lays out. First is the physiological needs of food, water, and sleep. Now, there's really no self-care and those physiological needs being met at Runway. We see this in Emily, whose diet consists of don't eat, and then right before you're about to faint, eat a cube of cheese. They're pushing each other to extremes of sleep deprivation, being up at all hours and always on call. And I can't imagine that they're drinking enough water. And then we have security needs. So this is when an environment feels free of threats. So Runway is not that environment. Runway is a very, very chaotic and environment that's full of threats and different things like that. So there's really no security needs at this company either. The third is love and social needs. So that kind of goes back to the topic of work-life balance and feeling that you're connected to your peers and your loved ones, and these needs of connection are met. And because of the lack of work-life balance, they're not really getting that love and social needs outside of work. And inside of work, it is really this toxic and critical environment where those needs are not being met or seen either. Fourth is esteem needs. So these are when someone feels respected and acknowledged for their accomplishments. So I've kind of already touched on this before, but just there's really no recognition for the work that people are putting in, and there's even an entire scene where Andy goes to Nigel and she talks about how she feels like she's killing herself for this work and putting in so much time and so much effort, and Miranda does not care and she's not acknowledged for it, and Nigel just tells her to quit and he could get someone else to take her job, but she does not want to do this. And it just goes to show the lack of esteem needs in this environment. And last but not least brings us to self-actualization needs. So this is when a person develops themselves to their fullest potential. And I think the clear example of this is at the end of the film, where Miranda and Andy are in the car about to go out to this big photo shoot, whatever. And Miranda's like, like everyone wants this lifestyle. Everyone wants to be us. Who wouldn't want this? And Andy looks at her and gets out of the car and walks away and leaves the life of runway behind. And I think that kind of goes towards her first step for self-actualization needs. She's removing herself from this toxic environment, realizing that she does not really need to put herself through this and be there, and is taking the step towards developing her fullest potential. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and thank you.